we arrive on this planet in this meat suit, in this human body. And part of this human body's survival mechanism that has helped it for millions of years is the survival mind, the primal mind, or what a lot of people refer to as the ego. The part of our mind that is filtering the outside world and recognizing potential threats. And then what it does is it sees potential threats, internalizes those threats, and gets us to learn how to behave in the future so we don't have to experience that again. It has a place. Like, it's kind of like a bodyguard for us. Okay, but the bodyguard doesn't need to be on the clock 24/7. Just like, okay, you stay there if we need a boost of adrenaline to run away from something, like we'll let you come out. But like, how can I get back to being this true me from just a different place, operating from a place that is really true to my core and full of compassion, self-love, and, ultimately like way more joy and happiness.
What was the threshold that you had to cross that said, hey, I'm taking my fucking life back here?
Yeah, that idea that I heard was everything in life is objectively, it's neutral. Every event that happens. And I give this in the back end is like only our mind creates meaning, good or bad. And I give this example. I was at a Rockies Padres game when I was living in Denver, and I went to the game by myself. Go Pods! And not a lot of people in the stands that game. And I looked down, and there was this family, and the daughter was probably 13 or 14, and the mom and dad. And they were just at a game having a good time. And the song "Gasolina" came on, if you're familiar.
Great song.
And the dad stands up immediately, like stoked when the song came on, hands in the air, and he's like dancing, and the mom's in the seat next to him, like laughing, looking at him, like dancing, and I see them enjoying, and I'm just like big smile. I like start dancing in my seat. I was like, this is amazing. Meanwhile, the girl looks up at her dad, terrified, like hands in her face. She's like this, like trying to pull him down to sit in his seat, just so embarrassed. And I was like, this is a perfect example. The circumstance is the same for everybody. But what is creating meaning in this situation is simply our perspective, our mind. For the daughter, horrible. For us three, amazing moment of joy and dance, and we love it. And so that was just such a beautiful example. And so I think what crossed the threshold for me, or what, kind of how I started to work through that, was I had been fighting it for a long time, just all the things that you said, looking up here. And I tell the story where, I lived in Chicago. Chicago's one of the best party cities in the country. I can't recommend it enough for anybody that, loves sports and a little bar scene and some good food. It's incredible. And so when I was living there 2 years, we would go out every Saturday with friends and drink all day from noon until 2 a.m. 25, 30 drinks that was my only day during the week I would drink, but it would be heavy. And there were about 12 times, especially in the last year or so, I was there 10 or 12 times, where I'd be just in the bar with friends, and all of a sudden there would be a wave of immense sadness come over me, and I felt like I was about to bust into tears at any moment, and I would just put my drink down and walk out. I wouldn't say anything to anybody. And so it was things like that where I would, get home after a night out, or not even like, during the middle of the week, and I would get into bed finally away from screens and distractions and work or alcohol or friend. And it was just the first moment with my thoughts, and I would like uncontrollably start crying. And I had no idea why. I'm like, man, I hadn't cried in 10 years. I don't know what's going on. So I say that because there's this drive to try and figure things out. I think as men too, especially, right? Like provide and protect, do it on our own. We got this, be tough. And so I had this being very competitive, like really into performance and health. And like, I love learning about this stuff anyway. So I was like, I can figure it out. So after, 4 years of really trying to, I was just fucking tired and frustrated that I couldn't find the answers at this point. I had gone to get help at one point. There was one time I drove like 20 miles north of where I lived in Chicago. I went into to see a psychiatrist just to share what was going on. I had like the sunglasses, the hat, the hood. Didn't want anybody to see me. I share my story, what's going on. And her first response was, "We can write you a prescription today." And I was just so pissed off that was the response. I just got up and walked out. And so I say that because like a lot was going into it. It's not like I wasn't, I wasn't trying. I was trying every day. I was still trying to like be healthy, work out, like do whatever I could, and it wasn't working. So when it finally came to a head, I really was almost forced to reevaluate. And I think a big moment for me was reevaluating like my relationship to money. I knew that if I was going to start a business, I had to not allow money to just drive all my decisions, because it wasn't going to work that way. And yeah, ultimately just I had to redesign. I started looking at like how I was spending my mornings to start my day. And it really just came down to, I have to somehow figure out how to change these thoughts that are going on. And then one of the things I learned and started working on very early on, which was such a foreign concept to me at the time, but the guy who said it and how he said it, and I forget exactly how he did, but it just really clicked with me. It was that, look, we arrive on this planet in this meat suit, in this human body. And part of this human body's survival mechanism that has helped it for millions of years is the survival mind, the primal mind, or what a lot of people refer to as the ego. The part of our mind that is filtering the outside world and recognizing potential threats. And then what it does is it sees potential threats, internalizes those threats, and gets us to learn how to behave in the future so we don't have to experience that again. Okay, great, very productive for when we hear, a lion's roar, or we look at certain, footprints in the ground, or we hear certain steps, or even if we're part of a tribe, like we don't want to piss off other people in the tribe, because typically what that would mean is we would get exiled. And if we get exiled, we're out fending for ourselves. That ultimately would lead to death. Okay. And now how it shows up is, we go to ask somebody out and they say no, or we raise our hand in class and we ask a question and somebody says that was a stupid question, or we feel like
in a deal, we lose the deal.
Yeah.
Our manager get yelled
Never
at
fucking call me again.
Mm-hmm.
You're the shittiest salesperson ever. Click. A lot of those. I think so. A lot of potential areas of rejection, not feeling love, not feeling part of the tribe. A lot of things with money has to do with this primal need for security and safety. And so, one of the things examples I give is like when you're driving and somebody cuts you off, you feel that primal response. Whether you think someone did it intentionally, whether you feel your safety was in danger, whether you feel your ego is threatened, like, oh, they should have put on their blinker, like whatever it comes from, that is your survival mind recognizing that as a potential threat to you. And so it creates this threat response. And so what happens now is so much of us are operating and living through this survival mind. And so hearing this idea and says, look, when you're living from a place of lack, when you're living fundamentally from a place of I'm trying to survive, I don't have what I need. And like, I don't feel secure in what I have, what I need, the love around me, like my safety, my security, even if like on paper, you can look at it and say, that's why it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million in the bank or if you have $10,000 in the bank or you have $10. It simply comes down to your perception of that. And most of us go through this without ever even thinking about it, unintentionally, like not even aware that these are the types of thoughts that are driving us. So for me, that was really my first major breakthrough, was understanding, oh shit, the opposing forces that are going on within me is true me, the part of me that feels like something's off, the part of me that is asking for more, the part of me that like has this itch to start a business for years, but it keeps getting suppressed. And then the other part of me that is doing the, suppressing that is like wanting to keep moving, that is, telling me not to go up to and talk to some, pretty woman because of fear of rejection or whatever. And so I'm like, oh, I have to start figuring out how to get out of my own way and stop these beliefs in their tracks, reframe them, start, to reprogram new beliefs, to come into the person. And like, I always used to think to myself, like, what are intentions I can set every single day about the person I want to become? When I'm at my best, what are things that I'm doing that I know I'm at my best? I'm kind, I'm compassionate, I'm patient, like I do hard things in the face of fear. I don't let fear rule my decisions. And so like that was the first like leveling up that I started to have. It's just the idea of understanding we are not our ego. We are not our survival mind. It has a place. Like it's kind of like a bodyguard for us. Okay. But The bodyguard doesn't need to be on the clock 24/7. Just like, okay, you stay there if we need a boost of adrenaline to run away from something, like we'll let you come out. But like, how can I get back to being this true me from just a different place, you know, operating from a place that is really true to my core and full of compassion, you know, self-love, and, you know, ultimately like way more joy and happiness.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Leader podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button so you get notified every time a new episode releases. If you know someone who wants to take their lives and their career to the next level, send them this episode so we can all rise together. For more information, check out alluviance.co. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime, keep letting it flow.